Welcome to the NFL Draft.
Start to turn this thing up.
To the end zone, touchdown! And he won't get it.
Hello?
What a catch! Turns on the afterburners. No way!
This is it. We're here.
With the first pick.
Welcome into NFL Draft Daily. We are thrilled to be here with you today and all the way through the 2026 NFL Draft to get you prepped for all 7 rounds. I am Field Yates, and I have a great crew with me today. We can't wait to rock with you every single day from left to right. Mel Kiper Jr., Matt Miller, and Louis Riddick. We're going to be diving into my mock draft, which dropped today on ESPN in just a little bit. But before we get there, let's start with one thing you need to know about the class. Mel, you're up first.
This quarterback class fielding is not what we thought it would be back in August. Let's maybe 6 quarterbacks, maybe 7 in the first round. Did not happen. Arch Manning, Lenora Sellers, back to South Carolina. Arch back to Texas. Cade Klubnik, Drew Aller, Garrett Nussmeier didn't form up to the level expected, right? Dante Moore had a heck of a year. He's back at Oregon. Sam Levitt moves on to LSU. You think about this quarterback class now, the number 1 pick overall, and then maybe not a quarterback until the second round unless Ty Simpson goes in the first, then no quarterback until round 3 after that. So what was thought to be a great class has fizzled dramatically.
The strength of this class, we talked about the weakness. How about the strength? It is at wide receiver. And yes, we've seen some great years with wide receivers in the past. This year, the depth is fantastic. I have 11 wide receivers ranked in my top 50. I have 18 in my top 100. So we're going to talk about maybe this draft is disappointing at quarterback. Maybe it's disappointing at corner. But my goodness, we are about to see a revolution at the wide receiver position again. And of course, it's players like Carnell Tate from Ohio State, Mekhi Lemon from USC. Guys, this is a great year to go get a pass catcher.
Yeah, for me, it's all about the defense in this draft. And the reason why I say that is because, look, we just came off of a Super Bowl in which Mike McDonald and the Seattle Seahawks showed you that multi-tool defensive players are the kind of guys that you are going to need if you want to compete at the highest level. And that's really what team building is all about. It's about building a team that you can compete at the highest level and win a Super Bowl. And I'll tell you what, Ohio State, you're seeing some highlights on your screen, has 2 of them, quite honestly, that are going to be drafted very early that are multi-tool players. When you're talking about Arbel Reese and Caleb Downs, you think about Ruben Bain Jr. from Miami, a guy who can play defensive end, who can play 3 technique, he can play in a 3-point, he can play in a 2-point. His running mate, Akeem Mesidor, just as good on the other side, is a 3-position player as well. These are the kind of guys you're going to need to get coming out of this draft.
We will give you all the big names, but also the names that are going to be there in day 3 when we are talking about the depth of your roster. But let's focus in on my mock draft, which is round 1. I feel great about exactly 1 pick. It's Fernando Mendoza, the quarterback from Indiana. You can basically start looking for real estate out there in Las Vegas. He had 41 passing touchdowns this past season, completed 72% of his passes. 6'5", 225-pound quarterback. Plays with great accuracy, as I mentioned. A hard play-action quarterback. He's got functional mobility as well to operate not just inside of the pocket, but on boots, play-action passes, rollouts, things that will fit well with Clint Kubiak in Las Vegas. Here's some players to work with out there in Las Vegas for both Fernando Mendoza and Clint Kubiak. Running back Ashton Jeanty, who had over 1,300 scrimmage yards last season behind a bad offensive line. Pair of tight ends you like in Brock Bowers and all-pro level talent, Michael Mayer, plus Trey Tucker and Jack Bech, kind of the starting points of this wide receiver room. Kubiak yesterday was asked about how much he knows about the likely number 1 pick.
My exposure is very limited. I saw him play the national championship game. I saw the interviews he's given after those games and how team-oriented he is. But I look forward to getting to know the player better. But obviously, a really talented guy with a bright future, and we'll see where he ends up. But we got a lot of work to do to get to know him before that time comes.
Okay, so maybe not a fait accompli, Mel, but we certainly all expect that April 23rd, the clock will begin, and the Raiders will shortly thereafter take Fernando Mendoza. What kind of fit is this within this Clint Kubiak scheme?
Be happy, Clint Kubiak, that you got the number 1 pick and you got Fernando Mendoza sitting there for you. I thought you got Talk about consistency from week to week. Never a bad game. Never multiple interceptions in any game this past year. Cut that sack total down dramatically from what it was at Cal. 72% completion percentage, 41 touchdowns, 6 picks, 8 touchdowns, no picks in the playoff games. You couldn't take him off that number 1 spot. You really couldn't. Dante Moore was right there with him. I have Dante. I was waiting for a game with him. He didn't have the bad game, but Fernando Mendoza nailed the season, and he is without question the number 1 player in this draft. Like I said, the Raiders in that division with all those great quarterbacks, fortunate to get him. One of the easiest picks, young fielding, you will ever make is the number 1 overall pick with the Raiders. And Matt, this is a lock. The Jets right now are on the clock.
Yeah, I think so. Field gets 1 of 1. We'll see what happens after that. But I think Mendoza has wildly been underrated. When was the last time we saw a quarterback go through the regular season undefeated, really almost a flawless performance, win a national championship, win a Heisman Trophy? Oh, wait, it was Joe Burrow, who turned out to be pretty good in the NFL so far. And I think we're going to hear that comp a lot, probably on the show tomorrow if you come back and watch. So I think the underrated aspects of Mendoza's game, he doesn't have great rushing totals. He doesn't have this huge, strong arm. You know, he's not Josh Allen. He's not Lamar Jackson to get you excited traits-wise. No, he's just a damn good football player who's accurate, who's smart, who's poised, and actually plays better the more teams rough him up a little bit. So I'm excited to get into the next 3 months of this process to think about the fit that he will be, especially, hopefully, after we see the Raiders make some moves to bolster that offensive line and to get him a number 1 wide receiver, which is a huge need for them.
Yeah, Lewis, this feels like such a foregone conclusion that we're already talking about what we need to do in Las Vegas around this roster to make this marriage successful between Clint Kubiak and Fernando Mendoza. What do you think are some priorities?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Field, it does start with the offensive line, and Clint Kubiak has already hinted around that fact. Look, understand where he comes from. Understand what his lineage is as far as a coach is concerned, going all the way back to his father. He's a guy who is a run-centric head coach, offensive coordinator, play caller. He's a guy who understands that the run game takes a lot of pressure off of the quarterback, in particular a young number 1 overall draft pick who's going to need something better than a team that finished last in, rushing yards per game, average carry per game, average yards before first contact per rush, sack rate. I mean, all these things are just abysmal right now. And Aston Genty is saying, hey, look, you could have gone ahead and improved that for me even before we got Fernando Mendoza. So, yeah, I'd love to see some new offensive linemen come in here. But that's where it's going to start. You saw how that really affected and really helped his quarterback in the Super Bowl in Sam Darnold. And quite honestly, you saw what it did to Drake May in the Super Bowl as well when you don't have it.
Yeah, and I think we could look at Seattle, Lou, and look what they did with Gray Zabel. They drafted him in the first round. They plugged him in. Boom. Instant upgrade along an offensive line that had some pieces. Charles Cross is a really, really good young player. They had some pieces there. You add in that rookie, and it takes them to the next level. Now, obviously, they're not going to draft somebody, a number 1 overall, to improve that offensive line, but I think you have to start looking early round 2. This draft is pretty solid on interior offensive line play. I know we'll dive into that as we get closer to the combine and the draft, but if you're looking for offensive guards, top of round 2, there's going to be some big names that could slide in and help this team immediately.
All right, let's move to pick number 2. The Jets have the 2nd pick. They have 2 picks in the first round. They have back-to-back years with 2 picks in the first round. Lots of draft capital. My pick for the Jets in this case is perhaps the most versatile defensive player. Lewis has already mentioned him once. It's Ohio State edge rusher, linebacker, probably could play safety if you needed him to, Arvell Reese. He had a breakout season this past year. Plenty of needs for this Jets roster, though. Maui Noah was terrific this past season for Miami en route to the national championship game. Outstanding in pass protection, and he has road grading strength. Some believe he is amongst the safest prospects in the entire draft class. His older brother, was taken in the 5th round by the Jets as a linebacker, also out of Miami. The Cardinals under Mike LaFleur need to rework the right side of that offensive line. Robert Saleh goes to Tennessee as a defensive-minded head coach. He gets some help for Jeffrey Simmons, our all-world defensive tackle in the form of David Bailey. 14.5 sacks this past season, tied for the most in all of FBS. Began his college career at Stanford. He is a throwback. No gloves, no sweatbands. This guy is a violent football player and a terrific rusher off the field. Caleb Downs, to me, might be the safest player in the entire class along with Maui Noah. This guy has been outstanding at both Ohio State and Alabama. He's a do-it-all safety who has terrific range, as a deep middle-of-the-field center fielder, and he is a tone setter with his physicality up front. You want to put him in the box? Good luck if you're treating him like a normal safety. He will hit like a linebacker. The Browns have 2 first-round picks. Spencer Fano is the first, 6th overall selection in my mock draft. The right tackle out of Utah. His experience playing the left side as well. Outstanding outstanding athlete for that right tackle spot. Needs to bulk up, just a shade over 300 pounds, but he has plenty of room to grow into that frame. One of the common themes amongst those four teams that we just highlighted is that they all have new head coaches, and they all have to get these picks right. But, Lewis, when you look at those four teams specifically, is there one that stands out to you as a franchise that must nail this premium pick?
Yeah, Field, for me, it's the New York Giants simply because of expectations. Because of the expectations that John Harbaugh brings in there with him being a $20 million per year coach and a guy who is a Super Bowl winning coach to go along with a GM in Joe Shane right now who many people felt as though, maybe John would move on from him. Maybe there was some things in his past in terms of some of the decisions that he made as far as team building was concerned before John got there that didn't warrant him keeping his job. So I think those two together need to show that, hey, look, we've got the 5th pick in the draft here. We're in a division right now where teams are going to look. Philadelphia is going to be legit. Dallas is going to get better. They've already shown you that they have done some things in the latter half of the season that lead you to believe that 2026 will be a strong season for them. The Giants need to nail this pick because they need an impact player, and they need one at multiple different areas. Look, I like your projecting Caleb Downs into that position simply because of what John was used to in Baltimore. And you know who he has as his defensive coordinator. It's Denard Wilson, who was the coordinator in Tennessee, who was his pass game coordinator in Baltimore. And what did they always have? They always had that chess piece at safety, that guy who was a hybrid between a nickel, a safety / corner, and Caleb could do that. They also need help at offensive line. So who knows what they're going to do here, but they better get an impact player for all these different reasons.
Yeah, timing's everything, Lou. You saw it with Mike Vrabel, with Drake May in year 2, and here's Jackson Dart in year 2. You have a dilemma here. Do you go wide receiver and look at a Cardinal Tate from Ohio State? Malik Neighbors coming back from that injury. Give him another weapon to throw to in Dart. When you look at the receiver position, and you also have Jordan Tyson. You also have Mekhi Lemons. You have depth at wide receiver. Matt talked about it. Into the 2nd, 3rd, 4th round, you have some outstanding receivers who will still be available. Caleb Downs, is he Kyle Hamilton? Kyle Hamilton didn't go in the top 10, but you're talking about a high pick for a safety in terms of positional value. 6 with Jamal Adams is the highest in a long time. So it's going to be a tough call there for Harbaugh, but rest assured, this is a team that could have won very easily, Matt. 7 football games. With all the issues they had this past year, could have won 7 football games easily. I think the expectations are this could be a borderline playoff team with Jackson Dart going into year 2 if they nail this draft.
Yeah, if they nail this draft and if he can stay healthy. But let's talk about the Arizona Cardinals for a second. I think we've forgotten this team. The fact that Kyler Murray could be on the trade block, probably is on the trade block this offseason. They could be starting over at quarterback. Marvin Harrison Jr., 2 years ago, we were talking about a generational talent at wide receiver. We were talking about him as the best receiver to come out of Ohio State, not Jackson Smith and Jigba, not Chris Olave, not Garrett Wilson. And they have not been the players they were expected to be when drafted that highly. So Monty Ossenfort, the general manager, he was retained to lead this coaching search. He has to get this draft right. And I think that is a team that is one of the longer rebuilds in the NFL right now. When you're looking at how do we fix the Arizona Cardinals? Well, you don't have a quarterback. Michael Wilson's a really good wide receiver, but Harrison hasn't panned out. That's a team. They have to get this draft right. And I think finding someone opposite Paris Johnson Jr. on the offensive line is a good way to start that.
We're really interested to see how the Cardinals attack that quarterback spot as well, Matt. Kind of in no man's land at number 3, given the landscape of the quarterbacks this offseason.